Yeah, we're here today with Mr. John Diggs, who is the owner and CEO of Natomas Driving School. And Mr. Diggs, tell us a little bit about how you got into the business of the driving school.
Actually, I was studying school. I was studying real estate in the San Fernando Valley, and they canceled the classes, so I didn't really have anything to do. And my wife found an article about driving schools and all that, and coming out, and it's a wonderful thing, whatever. And then I went out to California Driving School and started with them in 1977 and taught there 5 years in Los Angeles and the last 30 years here in Sacramento.
Okay, now we're here to talk today about just your experiences, owning the driving school and working as a driving teacher. Now, I understand you were, like you said, you were operating the business down in Los Angeles area.
Correct.
And you've had some pretty famous clientele down there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one in particular that we were talking about earlier, a really famous client that you had, was it back in the 80s?
78, 79, I believe.
78, 79.
Somewhere in there, yeah.
Do you mind telling us, our audience, who that was?
Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson. So you were Michael Jackson's driving teacher.
Correct.
Okay. Now, tell us how that all came about. Now, how do you get a client like Michael Jackson?
Well, the school, the California Driving School, it was a premier school, probably still is in Southern California, owned and operated by George Hensel, had a nice inroad to a lot of the stars, if you will, and things like that. He was pretty outgoing person himself. When the call came in, and I had already been working along with some of the special training parts, the special needs, I teach handicap and that and what have you, and they wanted someone, Michael's people wanted someone who was not only in the San Fernando Valley, but someone that he could actually relate to. And I'm a master instructor, so I got the call.
Okay, so you roll up to meet with Michael. How'd that go about? Where'd you meet him at?
At their home. On Havenhurst, right there off of in the Encino Hills, actually.
Okay, so how'd that first meeting go? Kind of give us some details. You walk into the house.
Well, first is getting in. There's it's a way to get. You have to get in. There's a long driveway that leads back to their home, so you have to kind of wait for a while so you can get in, because they're just not going to open it up to anyone. And I had sat there and did the intercom thing and finally got in. And then once we got in, we just kind of introduced ourselves. I met his mom, and I think his sister was there, Janet, and then one or two of the cousins or somewhere along that line. And then we just did the regular paperwork, having a permit, had to have that and whatever. And then just got out in the car and started doing our evaluation, and then figured out what we needed on training, and then went from there.
Okay, so was he scared to drive?
No.
He wasn't scared to drive?
No.
Okay, now how is that? I mean, here you are teaching this celebrity that was almost like an icon just around the world, and you're over here just driving on the public streets with Michael Jackson.
Right.
I'm sure people are seeing him driving as you're teaching him.
Right.
So what was that like? What was that experience like? Was that kind of distracting?
No, not at all. From a professional standpoint, it becomes a regular occurrence in a way, because there in that general area there are a lot of people of high influence in Encino, Sherman Oaks, what have you. So it was there as a small distraction, but you just move in and out, and you don't really get caught up in it. You just do what you have to do and evaluate exactly what, in his case, what he would need to do, to drive and license and all that good stuff.
So what was Michael Jackson like? Now, was he kind of reserved, or did you build a friendship with him?
Yes, very much so. I would say really quiet at the beginning, but then after moving, through the sessions and just, in conversation towards education, he became open about what was going on. And after that, it was really a very interesting training session, because he was very perfection oriented, and so am I. So it became a pretty good marriage, if you will, in training and with a student. And he's very personable and very outgoing, actually pretty comical, you know, kind of a joker in a way.
Well, give me an example of how he would joke.
Well, there's a lot of those. He had a few.
Tell us a few.
Yeah, he had a few jokes. The one that always comes to mind is when you pull up to their home, you kind of place your car kind of straight. And one morning, he used to hop the fence all the time. He never would open up the gate. He would just come up and hop over the fence and come out. And the driveway is a real long driveway. And we're in the car, and we get all set up and ready to go. And here comes his sister, Janet. And she's coming to pick up the newspaper. And she's got that I just got out of bed look kind of thing. And she's slow dragging because she's really not trying to catch up to us. And we're really supposed to be going, but he spots her coming and he delays going on purpose. And she just keeps walking slower and slower, trying to avoid coming all the way down there for us to see her, basically. And she got all the way down there. And as soon as she got down there to reach and get that newspaper, he blew the horn. And she jumped and ran and all that. And he just loved that. You know,
right.
It was just a funny thing with him. And there's a lot of little things that he would do, you know, that were kind of funny. Mentioning to you earlier, his hands. He would just joke around with his hands because I'm a 10 and 2 believer in driving.
Right.
And as we would go along in the sessions, he would slowly but surely drop his hands down, especially on the side where I could reach him and think I wasn't looking, and I'd have to reach and pull it back up there to where it was properly, you know, and he'd go back and forth with it like that. So he'd had a lot of fun.
Okay. So you mean talking about him as a perfectionist. Tell us a little bit about that. You say he's a perfectionist when it came to driving.
Perfectionist,
period. He did.
I mean, everything that seemingly what we were, what we would do, he would always go into detail and you know, want to know exactly why the car did this or why he should be doing that, or he would be critiquing himself while he would be driving, because I would, you know, give him the instructions on what he should do or what we should be doing, and then he'd repeat it back. But he wanted to make sure, even parking, we did our parallel parking between the two cars, and I mean, if it wasn't just right where he came up, he'd be right back trying to do it again, you know, over and over again, just that way, in being perfect at what it was. And at the time, he had just finished doing The Wiz, and he was saying how the problem he was having because of the takes, or just the idea of trying to do every little line he had absolutely correct. And I don't know if it frustrated everybody, but he said he just couldn't just do it, half do it, that kind of thing.
So you guys would talk a lot about personal things. It's not about the driving, you know, him getting his license. So, I mean, like you said, what other things would you talk about?
Well, you know, a lot of times after driving, it would be conversations about sports. He enjoyed sports, basketball in particular, because they played a lot at the house. They had their own basketball hoop. He would talk about just in general people and the way things were going about, and how, you know, growing up was, where he was and how he was then. And, you know, he'd ask a lot of questions, kind of trying to get a read on where he was as a young man too, you know, with the change in his own career, moving out. Now, he was still with the group, but he, you know, you could tell he was working on some other stuff, music. He would always have something. He'd be writing something down about something that would pop in his head or something. So we talk about all kind of everything, from politics, race, everything.
Mm-hmm. You ever talk about, you know, how he felt about being famous, like sometimes it's some of the downsides to being famous?
Yeah, it was mainly the idea even to be having the lessons at that point at I think 19 years old, and, you know, no driver's ed, no driver training, and just the isolation part to it. But it was part of the program, you know, the success part, and how, you know, he'd like to be able to kind of just move about, you know, like everybody else and do it, but that wasn't going to be happening.
Now, he was homeschooled, correct?
I think. I don't know.
Now, there was times when you would have to pick him up at the studio. How was that? You said there was one in particular song, I guess he was finishing up.
Yeah, well, it wasn't picking up. It was a couple of times there would be the end of the sessions where we'd have to drop off at the studio, and it was in San Fernando. And I think the time you're talking about is when we finished our session. It was the recording of the I want to say Destiny album. I'm not really sure which one it was. The long story short was they were waiting on him. He came in, the brothers were all there, and he was so kind to me, asked me to come on in and sit a while, and so we did, or I did, came on in, and in that session was the song Don't Blame It on the Sunshine, Don't Blame It on the Moonlight, that song. And I sat through that one, a couple other ones, but after it was over, I remember going home and telling my wife, I said, boy, they got a cut coming out now. And I went on through the whole song as much as I heard it, and about 3 weeks later, boom, you know, it hit. You know, and she said, that's the song you were singing. I said, yeah, that's the one they were in the studio putting out on that. So, and he was so nice, let me come on in there.
Now, it came a point where he wanted to talk to you about getting a car.
Yes.
Now, what type of car did he desire? What type of car did he talk to you about?
Rolls Royce. It started out, actually, he was looking, you know, once he got this licensing thing out of the way, his plan was to get him some kind of a car or whatever. And I had a 56 Buick way back when I was, you know, in teenage years, and I had put a picnic table in it. And the picnic table actually was taken from the 1959 James Young edition of Rolls-Royce Silver Clouds 3. I had placed it in there, but I'd studied how they did it, whatever. And he got into it, and we talked Rolls-Royce and all that kind of stuff, and that's the vehicle he was going to get. One of our sessions, he was going to go look at them, but he was a little skeptic because he didn't know about them. The salesman was kind of giving him a lot of vague answers. He wanted me to go with him. We did our session and went out there. We were going out there. It's in Santa Monica, and it wasn't open. And so we went and stopped and had breakfast and what have you. And therein lied another little thing there that was kind of interesting.
Tell us about that. Tell us about the IHOP experience.
Yeah, that was really interesting. With the California Driving School, you wore a uniform, kind of was like an Eisenhower uniform, dark blue pants, light blue shirt, blue tie, a little short jacket with gold buttons on it, and it actually had a badge on it, so you kind of look like an officer or something. Well, we come in and go to have breakfast and what have you, and the people in there are buzz. There he is, Michael Jackson, having breakfast. So, and being Michael, you know, he's just very cordial, talking with everybody at the whole 9 yards and what have you. And we leave, and we go to leave, and just as it happens, a young lady, two young ladies actually, they were in their scrubs like nurses or something. The one young lady had the People magazine with him and Christy McNichols on it. And boy, that caused a lot of problems in the parking lot because she didn't have a pen. We went through all that, but he signed literally everyone's paper, napkin, anything that they wanted signed. He virtually signed it. Then we left there and went to the Rolls-Royce place and went through the whole Rolls-Royce
Now, how was
thing.
that? How'd that go? Here you are, you know, going to the Rolls-Royce dealer with Michael Jackson, and any type of special treatment there when you walk in?
Yes and no. You know, in Beverly Hills or Santa Monica, whatever, they're pretty much familiar with a lot of famous people, but you know, he almost commands that extra attention anyway, who he is and what have you. And I think it was entertaining to a degree because of the questions that he wanted answered and what I knew about, you know, the Rolls-Royce, about the system, the braking system, the engine and all that. And it took on a different life because the salesman was kind of like taken aback that he would bring someone in a uniform to come in and talk to him about a Rolls-Royce. But it turned out well. He bought a beautiful, beautiful car.
So he gets the Rolls-Royce. He didn't get it then?
No.
Okay, when did he get it?
I think it was like 2 weeks later. We had taken our drive test right at the Van Nuys DMV, and that's a story
How'd
in
that
itself
go?
too. Oh, he went right on in. I can see his examiner now. It was a brother named Greg Battle, and very professional, a very professional examiner. Had no really, you know, how do I say it? He wasn't, so to speak, intimidated. Took him out on the driving test, and it's a challenge to take a driving test in Los Angeles in Van Nuys, and he came right back, and if I remember, he only missed one or something on the test, and then that's when he bought the Rolls Royce.
When there was a press there when he took his driver's license?
No. It was just Michael Jackson coming to get a license, man. It wasn't. We just came up. At that time, you didn't have to have appointments, so it wasn't 10 o'clock, here comes Michael Jackson. You just went in, got in line, checked in, and then out to your car you went, and then boom, on your driving test.
Now, Michael Jackson asked you to do something when he had kids.
Right.
What was that he asked you to do?
Thank you for that. That's a good opportunity. He asked, one day we were talking about driving and how things were, and I think this is probably the best compliment I've ever had as an instructor. Is he made mention that if he had a wish, that he would wish that everyone would drive basically the way I taught for just one day, and how safe the world would be. And I thought, wow, man, that's a pretty good thing for somebody to just say, you know, because he was talking about the lives and the deaths and all of that good stuff. And I said, yeah, well, you know, that's what we try to do, etc. So he made mention if and when he had children, and if I was still around, you know, at the time, I'm only about 10 years older than what he was at the time, that if I teach his children how to drive, if he, you know, had them. And so I said, sure, I'll do it, no problem. So kind of made a promise kind of deal, because we used to talk about promise is a promise kind of thing in terms of what you do in your life. And so that was what I promised to do at that time, and to teach his children, if he had them, how to drive.
Mm-hmm. Now, have you been able to make any contact with the family?
No, not at all. And actually, if you know me, I'm not the real person to even pursue this, you know, kind of thing. It's just something that has happened. But over the course of the last couple years, since obviously his death and that, it's been brought back up, and people want to know more about him and what have you. It sparked that promise back into me, and noting that the kids were at a certain age, at least some way or another, to let, you know, the family know, you know, that was a promise that was asked of me, and a promise I'd like to do.
So how would you sum up your experience with Michael Jackson? How was that whole experience? You know, just being able to, you know, have a friend like him, just even for that short period of time. You know, how was that? How has that impacted your life?
Well, you know, a lot, in the sense that it was short only in times of, you know, me moving here to Sacramento. I had conversations with him quite a few times afterwards. You know, one of the stories was the Pepsi commercial. I kind of think I shared that with you, where he was driving the car. I spoke to him after that about it.
Tell us about that. Tell us about the Pepsi.
Well, he did it. Those who remember that commercial, he rolls up in a car, and he pulls up on these youngsters, and one of them happens to be the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, what's his name, Alfonso Rubio. He's a little kid. That's
Carlton,
yeah, Carlton, that's him, Carlton in there. And Michael pulls up or whatever. That part of the story goes when he called me later, and he used to call the house all the time, and certain times and that. Anyway, he called and let me know that he had his hands at 10 and 2. You know, again, joking and having a good time with what the training was, and how at that time too they weren't sure that he would be able to drive that car. And he said, no, I was taught. John taught me, whatever. So it was pretty good to go. And it kind of moved along a few times later on, because when he did finally get that Rolls Royce, just go back on that for a minute, another thing he did, I think people should know, that was really good. I got there at his home, and the lesson was ready to go, but there were probably, I'd say, about 15 to 20 kids outside the gate, and had been there from what he said since like 7 o'clock in the morning. So he and his mother and I were standing there talking, and he says, well, look, you know, they've been out there this long time. I'm going to go out there. My car is going to be brought back here later on this afternoon, and I'd like to take a lesson in it, but I want to get this training with you too. He said, but I'm going to go out and I'm going to talk to these kids for, you know, 10, 15 minutes or whatever. He said, then I want you to come out and then act like we got to go, you know, and whatever. So I talking with his mom, what have you. Then I go out there and kind of make it an official thing. Michael, it's time for us to go, blah, blah, blah. And so he gets in the car, waves goodbye to him. They're yelling and screaming. So you head down Havenhurst, you're going down towards Ventura, and there used to be might still be there, a market called Gelson's, and there was the payphone. So he said he wanted to pull in there. And I said, okay. So he pulls in, and he gets out, and he gets on the phone. He calls back to the house, and he's talking to someone because he wanted to give them sandwiches, or he wanted to get them something. You know, they'd been out there all morning, figured they had probably been hungry. And somewhere on the phone, they didn't have anything, whatever, it wasn't provisions or whatever.
Now, how many people were out there by the gate?
About 15, or it had to be about 15 of these young kids, just, you know, Michael Jackson. They were just in it, you know. And so he ordered up pizza and soda and what have you, and told them to have it, give it to him, whatever. We do our session, we come back, they're gone. But out front of the gate, they had kind of folded the boxes and everything up, and it read, "I love you, Michael," or "We love you, Michael," and they had stacked it all up. And it was so cool. And that's kind of stuff that you don't maybe know that a person like that would do, you know, so kind of to send that stuff back to him.
Now, what was it you think it was about you that he wanted to have you as a friend? You know, because he kept a real close-knit circle.
I would say because I was just, you know, a professional at what I did. I really didn't, you know, it would be problems, not problems, but when, you know, he would call or his manager would call and you look to schedule the next appointment, then the office people would always be pushing something, a picture, or they would have something in our little box that when I'd come in to get my work for that week or whatever, and they wanted him to sign it or something like that. And I would never go that way. And he really appreciated the fact that it was just what we were doing, and I was a professional at what I was doing, and that's how he started speaking pretty candid. You know, we just kind of was talking, you know, just like maybe I'm same age, I guess, Jackie. So it was kind of like an older brother thing where I'd answer questions for him about, you know, girls or whatever and that kind of thing.
Would he ever talk about any of the sibling rivalry he had with his brothers or sisters?
No. Yeah. Maybe dancing, because they had a studio and it was very nice, mirrors and a nice wood floor, but he would always talk about trying to outdance because he was James Brown oriented and outdance Marlon or somebody. But other than that, no, it was always very upbeat about everybody.
Okay. Now, did you talk to Joe Jackson?
No.
Okay, so you never really talked to Joe Jackson.
Only one time, I think. We just hello because we were in their home. We were doing something. I forgot what we were trying. I think he couldn't find his permit, so I was in, and he was there, but I really never spoke to him at all. Janet was there, all the guys, you know, Tito especially, because I'm in the cars, and so was he. So we talked. So
would they kind of tease him sometimes about, you know, his driving, you know, taking the driving lessons from you? Would they kind of make jokes, some of the brothers?
No. You never said much about it, but I tell you one thing, he was very skillful with that car. He knew exactly how to do that car. Matter of fact, that's another story where we used to do what is called a road trip. And what I would do is give them a map or whatever, and you figure out where you want to go, and then we would go, but you had to get there on your own and whatever. He mapped it out perfect where he wanted to go. Matter of fact, it was towards Santa Barbara. That leads back to where we were talking earlier about where you ended up living in Santa Barbara, but that's where he wanted to go. Mapped it out. Excellent skills. Drove all the way up 101. Boom. No problem.
Okay. How long did that take?
Well, our road trips are like 3 hours. So it was an hour and whatever it was. We had some lunch up there again. Okay. And that's the second time he owes me, or did owe me.
He still owes you from IHOP, huh?
Yeah, well, we used to joke.
What happened with that? He said you didn't have any wallet,
well, you know, he just was hungry. The place was closed, and so we go, and, you know, we went, and I teased him about that for a while. I said, hey, man, you never paid me for IHOP, man. Right. Whatever. So, you know, we laugh about that. You know?
So he still has an outstanding tab.
Yeah, I guess so.
Right.
But he could owe me.
That's good. We were joking about how you got his autograph. Now tell me how you got his autograph, because he did not know how to write something.
Well, yeah, we people always ask me that. Don't you have any memorabilia, autographs, or all that? And And no, my thing was, you know, it's business. I have a lot of autographs on the checks that he wrote, and that led to the idea that he really didn't know how to write a check, you know, and he, you know, that's one thing I showed him what to do, how to write it out, and got the signature on there. But that was pretty much the only autograph. He might, I have a program at the house that I really haven't checked it, but it was about the Wiz. He gave it to me sometime afterward. He might have signed that, so that may be autographed, but other than that,
okay. Wow, that's that's a pretty rich career experience, you know, just with that. I'm sure you've like you said, you've taught other, I guess, celebrities how to drive and work with other celebrity I guess kids and things like that. So, you know, coming out to Sacramento, you know, how was that transition?
Well, it was interesting because of the actual pace, you know, a slower pace. You know, obviously the different environment, even in driving, you don't have what you have in Los Angeles. But even since I've been here, you know, it's grown into kind of a semi-automatic, semi-Los Angeles type of thing, where now you need to have skills like you have down in Los Angeles with the speeds and what have you. So it's been fine. The people, you know, are learning a little bit better about what we need to do out here because we're growing so fast and that.
Okay. Well, how can someone get in touch with Natomas Driving School?
Phone number 916-925-5253. And you can ask for Jeffrey, which is our son, Jeffrey Diggs, or you can call myself at 916-201-7429.
Now, what would you say sets your school apart from other schools, other than you were Michael Jackson's driving teacher?
Well, when I speak on it, I think people have a tendency to think I'm being, that I'm kind of bragging or anything, but I'm actually California's only master instructor. And that in itself separates me from, you know, the other schools. I went through a full program with the California Driving School, took the testing and that. Plus, I've not only been like an owner-operator, but training director, assistant educational director, and I probably, I don't know, have 10, they used to call it the Mr. Galley Award. Arthur J. Galley was the educational director, and I've had his award, and he was a renowned European driving instructor through Austria and Germany and that. And a concise program and the same professionalism. Everyone's a star, but we all everyone's treated with that. So the difference probably would be the dedication to the improvement of what's going on out here, not just, you know, the money-making part of it.
That's great. Well, thank you, Mr. Diggs, for your time. Any closing words that you'd like to say to our audience out there?
Just be safe in these cars. You know, it's tough enough out there, just, you know, with what's going on, but texting, you know, all the other things, turning our cars into eateries and salons. In closing, I guess, just be safe, and it doesn't hurt to slow down, enjoy what's going on, and leave in enough time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.